Welcome to Practical 10 for Geography 112. In this practical, you will be using GIS software. The GIS software that you will be using is called ArcGIS. It is a software that is available in the computer laboratories on campus. You can find it in Natural Sciences building, in any one of the computer labs there. You can also find it in the library on any of the computers there. So you need to visit one of those computer labs to be able to complete this practical. The first thing you will need to do is download the data from eFundi. You will see when you download it, it is a zipped file, which means you will need to unzip it. So download the data zip file to any place on your computer or on a flash drive or external hard drive. Then right click on it and say extract files here, extract to data, any one of these options. I'm going to say extract here, and it will be extracting the data to this folder here. This is what you need to see. You need to see all of these files. Let's count them. There's 22 files that you should be able to see, and these files are what will be needed to complete this practical. Now, to open the ArcGIS software, you'll need to do the following. The easiest way to do it is to search your computer. So go to a computer in any one of the labs that I mentioned and start up the computer, and then use the search function to search for ArcMap. So ARCMAP, and you should see this icon here. ArcMap, it should be 10.5, it might be 10.4, it doesn't really matter, but you need to see this icon and then you need to click it, and this will open the ArcGIS software. Once opened, you will see the ArcMap getting started window. You can just go ahead and close this window. Now, the first thing that you would like to do will be to add data to ArcMap. To do this, you can click on this icon here, which is called the Add Data button. This will open the Add Data window. Now, the next step is to locate the data that you just extracted from the zip file. So click on this icon here, which is called Connect to Folder. It's a little folder with a plus sign at the top right, so you can click on that. And then you need to locate the folder to which you extracted the zip file. Now, this can be on your C drive, this can be on your external hard drive, this can be on a flash drive. So you need to locate the relevant drive. I extracted mine to the C drive, to the Practical 10 folder, and data. So then click on that folder to which you extracted your data and say OK. You will now be able to see the data that you're going to use for this practical. You can left click on the mouse and drag to select all 4 of the files. Alternatively, you can click on each one individually by holding in the Control button on the keyboard. You can also select all 4 of them and then say Add. Initially, you will see nothing displayed in your map window. Right click with the mouse on NW Potch Campus and click on Zoom to Layer. You should now be able to see the Potchefstroom campus of the Northwest University. In class, Mr. Stander allocated 2 buildings to each of the groups for this practical exercise. Now, in order to locate the buildings that you should use, you can consult the campus plan that's available on eFundi. So open up this plan, you can have a look at it and see, for instance, if you have building E3 and building E2, note where they are on the campus plan and locate them on the spatial data set that's available in ArcMap. In this case, that will be building E3 and that will be building E2. Zoom in to the buildings that you need to work with. I'm going to zoom into these 2 buildings here. Right, so for instance, this is my buildings that I would like to focus on for my analysis. Your first step will now be to get the buildings that you would like to use and extract them from this dataset. To do that, click on the Select Features button. Click on the building you would like to select. Press the Shift key on your keyboard. Shift, hold it in, and select all the other buildings that you would like to add to your selection. Once you have selected all the buildings that you would like to use, you can right-click on the NW Potch Campus layer, click on Selection, and click on Create a Layer from Selected Features. You will now see that a new dataset is added to ArcMap. The dataset that's added will be the buildings that you're going to use in your exercise. You can now turn off the NW Potch Campus layer, and only the buildings that you would like to use will now be displayed. Your next step will be to plot the entrances of the buildings as stipulated in your Onifundi. So to do that, you're going to use the entrances dataset. So you can right-click on entrances, hover over Edit Features, and click on Start Editing. You will see the Editor toolbar appearing on your screen. At the far right of this toolbar, there's a Create Features button. Click on that. Now you are able to select the features that you would like to edit. To do the first part of this question, you need to add the entrances to the buildings. So you can left-click on entrances, and note that your icon now changes to a little dot that you can place somewhere on your map. What you now need to do is you need to go out into the fields, visit these buildings, and identify the different entrances to the buildings. So I'm just going to use an example here. This is not correct. So the group that's going to work with these two buildings, please visit them and locate the relevant entrances. So just for an example, I'm going to say that's an entrance. I'm going to click on it. And then you need to specify whether this entrance is accessible or not. Okay, so that's one of the requirements for the first part of this question. So to do that, you right-click on the entrances layer, and you click on Open Attribute Table. And now, in the class field, you can type accessible or not accessible. You can then add the next entrance, open the attribute table again, right click on entrances, open attribute table, and type not accessible, for instance. And so you continue to add entrances to your map. Once you have located all the entrances, you can click on Editor, and you can say Stop Editing. And you can say, yes, I would like to save my edits. You have now created new data. The data that you created are the entrances to the buildings, and you have classified them in terms of accessibility. Please note that the entrances are not displayed fully. You can see only a part of the little dot. So to rectify this problem, you can left click on the campus selection and drag it to the bottom. So that's a left click and drag. And now note, because it's at the bottom now, the points are displayed on top of the outline of the buildings. You are also asked to distinguish now between the entrances that are accessible and those that are not. To do this, right click on entrances, click on properties, click on symbology, click on Categories, click the Value Field drop-down arrow, click on Class, click on Add All Values. Note that the dataset now distinguishes between accessible and not accessible. In the question you are asked to make everything that's accessible green. To change this, double-click the accessible icon. You can select any point icon that you would like to use. You could use squares, you could use circles, you could use triangles. I'm going to use a square. I'm going to make it a bit smaller, 13, and I'm going to make that a green color. For those that's not accessible, I'm going to also use a square, and I'm just going to make the color red. And I'm going to say OK, and note that the color is now changed on your map. Now I can see for this example which entrances are accessible and which ones are not. So that's for the first part of the question. For the second part of this question, you need to rate the total building in terms of its accessibility. So for that, again, you need to go out into the field, you need to visit these different buildings and rate them in terms of the accessibility. So walk around in them, cover all the floors, see are there elevators, what floors are accessible, which ones are not, and give a total rating in terms of is it very low accessible, is it medium accessible, is it highly accessible. Once you've decided, you can start classifying the different types of accessibility. The way in which you're going to do this for this exercise, for instance, let's say you know this building is highly accessible, you're going to select it, and if you know that one is also highly accessible, you're going to hold in the shift key again and select that one as well, and let's say this one here is also highly accessible. So select all those that are highly accessible, right click on the dataset from which you are selecting, in this case this green one, click on Selection, click on Create Layer from Selected Features. You will see a new dataset added again, and this one you're going to rename again Highly Accessible. So these buildings that are now currently in purple are all the ones that are highly accessible. Now you need to select the remaining buildings as well. So for instance, that one now you know is medium accessibility, and these small ones are also buildings of medium accessibility. Select all the medium accessible ones. Again, you're selecting from the green layer. Right click, Selection, Create Layer. A new layer is added, and you're going to rename that one Medium Accessible. And let's say the final layer, the final building that's remaining, is low accessibility. Let's select that one. The same exercise, and we're going to call that one low accessible. Now you've got 3 layers with different accessibilities. You can turn off the initial one, and now you just need to change the colors as asked for. So high accessibility should be a light green, medium accessibility should be a yellow. You're just left clicking on the little icon, left click and select the relevant color. Low accessibility should be an orange color. And again, you can see your entrances aren't displaying correctly, so I can left click on entrances and drag them to the top. Now I've completed both step 1 and step 2. We now have the building's entrances and displaying them as accessible or not accessible, and we also have different layers for each of the buildings showing their overall rating as being low accessibility, medium accessibility and high accessibility.